Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, wherever you're doing, and welcome to a TMM special for Anfield Index. It is October. There isn't a million miles away till the January window, but not too long at the same time. Essentially, if Liverpool are going to sign anyone, you know that plans will already be well afoot to make those deals. And there's a couple of players we're going to focus on. Some are prime in the spotlight. One we may be looking more towards the summer. And of course, with a massive game coming up on Saturday, we will do a little bit on that for you. I am, as ever, joined by Bart to walk me through all these. And without giving too much away, I ask you this quite a bit on these shows. The players that we're going to look at, do they excite you?
Yeah. One of them's probably one of the most exciting players in the Premier League at the moment in terms of form, and the other is still exciting, but could be a smart buy, So yeah, both attacking players excite people, right? So and they're both attacking players, so yeah, they're exciting.
Which will be interesting for some, because that probably like us, some are thinking January, surely we need defenders, surely we need progressive defenders. And that's true, but we've already talked about those before. We gave you those names in the last show. Now, all we can do is really give you the latest review on the names. And there is only one place to start, Bart. I mean, this one. Antoine Semenyo, who is running hot at the moment. 6 goals, 2 assists in the Premier League. But this article was out the other day, wasn't it, from Mark Douglas, as it says there.
Yeah.
From the news, Liverpool consider a January move for Antoine Semenyo as pressure grows on out-of-form Mo Salah. Now, there's a couple of things with this, Bart, that we know Semenyo can play both sides. It's definitely not the first time we've been linked with him. And the reason we're saying that, we profiled him in the summer or before the summer, didn't we, as well? Because New Liverpool
we did.
But didn't decide, for whatever reason, to pull the trigger last summer. When Luis Diaz went, talks intensified, it seemed, but for whatever reason, Richard Hughes, Michael Edwards didn't make the move. But now it's looking at this, Bart, and we'll talk about the financials and stuff as ever as we do afterwards. But Antoine Semenyo in January, what are your stats telling you as we do the normal run through?
I think it's important to say, and when we looked at him in the summer, the point that I'll come back to is, was it summer? Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Summer. We said that last season there was just some things about output.
Yeah.
Like, he did a lot of stuff that was really impressive, carrying it between the boxes. But it was like, when he's actually in the box, what did he produce? When you looked at it, he underperformed that, right? That's fundamentally, I think, one of the conclusions we made. And you just have to look at the game against us. He terrified our midfield last season away, but actually, what did he produce? He had a wide shot and he hit the button. He didn't. It wasn't anything of any note, right? So, and people can have a go at me for whatever, but that's a real simple way of looking at it. But I think that's where it is. So this season, the important thing is, has he made that step from being there's something about him to, are you producing? Because if you're producing, that's when Liverpool come in and say, go on then, we'll give you a platform to go and do that regularly every Saturday. So if you look at where he is in the usuals, and this is for the last 365 days, it'll be a bit of back end of last season and a bit of the front of this season, all right? Key things that are impressive for me is defensively, right? It's really starting to show up that he's working hard off the ball as well, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm not going to go down the route of having to go a club legend, I'm really not, right? But the role in which we seem to now need our front players, the wide players, to do, is potentially not best suiting to Mo at his age, right? So you potentially need, if your front screen is not really going to do the off-ball work that we used to have, and that's just a fact. We profiled that, and we said both our current buys and our 9 didn't do as much as our old 9s did off the ball, right?
Yeah.
So you need to do that somewhere, right? So if Cody is famed for doing his off the ball work, which we could look at another day, but I'm just saying he is famed for this off ball work, then you might need to plug in what's happening on the other side or give options for Cody. So Semenyo, for me, he's got blocks, clearances, and aerials. right in the 90th and 80th percentile for a forward. Well, that's really high for a forward.
Yeah.
That's really good, right? And I know some of that is like Bournemouth play, and they're a bit more. They all have to work hard now, right? But that shows you over that year, as I said, that 365 days, that things have changed and things have improved, right? In between the boxes, still carries it well. 63rd, still takes players on. In the box, 78th percentile for non-penalty goals. His XG's down a little bit from where it was last season. Shooting still at 80th percentile. And if you compare him to Cody, he is better than him defensively, I would say, if you've been taking players on. Cody still has a lot of output, which is people have a go at Cody, but you can't really argue with his output. He scored last night. He scored at the weekend. He might do lots of things that we could all criticise him for, but fundamentally, he is kind of doing, as an old school manager would say, what he's in the side for, right? If you compare, if I can just find Mo Salah along here. So if you compare Semenyo to Mo Salah, it's almost a yin and yang, right? Mo is still better than him in the last year because he's got back end of last season to look about. But Semenyo is better than him in terms of aerials and the off-ball stuff that might be important, right? If we look at Mark R, which is a classic site for looking at some of the stats that aren't available on FBrief and Opta, he's currently threat-wise 0.06 for both pass and cross. Penalty box carries is 0.89, which is just less than one a game. Now, I did some quick maths for you earlier on while I was recovering, and a lot of these are actually down on where he was last year. So the XG change down by 0.04. His progressive passes are down by 0.1. His progressive carries are down by 0.64, and his penalty box carries are down by 0.82. So now you might think, well, hang on a minute, why are we bigging this player up then? But I go back to what I said right at the beginning. Last season, he was doing amazing stuff here, but when he got in the box, he wasn't doing it. And that's the change this year. Yeah. So if you look at the year, he finished with 11 goals and 5 assists from an expected goals of 14.5 and an expected assists of 6.61, right? Yeah. So he outperformed both of those metrics by a considerable amount, to be fair as well, right? This season, as you said right at the top, he's on 6 goals, 3 assists, and that is from a 4.5 XG, so he's overperforming, and from a 0.44 XA. So you could say he's running a little bit hot, but most strikers, when they make that step, will always run a little bit hot. That's a good thing to buy, yeah? Isak, people have criticisms of Isak, whatever, but he's always a above par striker finisher, right? He's on a bad patch with us at the moment, but generally we look at his career, he always finishes slightly above where he should do.
Yeah.
Right? So, but in a roundabout way, what I'm saying is Semenyo, for me, seems to have made that transition from doing good stuff but no end product to still doing the bits we want you to do, but now giving us the end product and giving us an end product to a striker that is over par. So, yeah, I think that's me kind of saying this could be a really good move for us. He could be exciting. Plays both sides if you watch the video on him. Yeah. Comfortable with both. I've seen a variety of finishes as well, like a side foot from left to right foot, crosses, long shots, following things in. So, yeah, I think there's a really good player in there. I spoke to a contact of mine who's done some coaching with him, and he says the world could be his oyster. He's right on the cusp of exploding on the world scene. So, in his opinion, so yeah, I think this could be a really exciting deal for the right price. Obviously, as we always say.
And then thinking back to last summer, because there was positives. It's important we mention these. Just I can't think of another way of putting it. The physical gifts Semenyo has, as we said, absolutely rapid, strong, good in the air. And it's never fair to do a direct comparison like this. But as we kind of alluded to, from a physical profile, maybe the closest you could put to Sadio Mane in the Premier League, or maybe even in world football, from the physical profile out there. I'm not saying he is Sadio Mane, so that would come into the mix. Is there an element with he's got those physical gifts on what that could translate to on the left-hand side? He's got the relationship with Kirkez. He obviously played with Kirkez, didn't he, quite often down the left as well for Bournemouth that way. And the fact he is running hot, but maybe, and we talk about that, is he starting to go supernova, finishes on 2 feet. There is a lot to like, isn't there, in terms of why Liverpool, even if it's not just for January, they will be having a good look at him.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're right about the connections piece is really important for me, because we've already seen this season where, I hate the word churn, but it's relevant, right? If you change too many parts of the side at once and you break too many connections, it doesn't just pop. So sometimes if you buy in a connection, that will help you get over a bit more of a hump. So this is where a January move might be quite smart, because it might cost you a bit. But if you suddenly get your left side working better than it is now, and with the left side midfielder potentially, that could then mean on points wise we kick on in the new year or whatever else you want to put on it. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. He is going to be going to AFCON. So I'd imagine. I think is he going to?
This is what I thought he was, or to be honest, until we started the show. But news for me and probably news for everyone else. Ghana didn't qualify, so he is not going to AFCON.
But okay, so this year, but generally, it's one of those things you have to consider. Yeah, AFCON is always going to be around this year, so that's something to look forward to. But no, I could. There's a lot of smart reasons why you could go for him. It might cost you a bit more. I don't know whether there's a release clause. I can't remember whether we discussed that in the summer or not. But I'm sure Hughes can roll up that old book and contact list as well.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's probably Richard Hughes who maybe lined up the release clause, or will have a good idea from his contacts. But did a bit of digging on this to try and get some information. That info is through Anfield Index sources that there is a release clause. I think it's no secret, it's out there. However, the release clause doesn't come into play until the summer. So it's summer 2026 when the release clause comes in. And suggestions are it's about 60 million quid around that mark. Hence, while there's talk, and no one ever knows for definite, but in January, they're going to want a premium, aren't they, Bournemouth? Because, let's be honest, Bournemouth are third in the league. They'll be looking at, what they can do and, where they can get to. And Semenyo is front and centre of that. Is this just a hard price point that we talk about now, Bart? Because the release clause for the summer, it's January, so clubs want a premium. Bournemouth are well run. They've got targets themselves. Also, just everything else we've done and Liverpool have spent in the summer. So clubs will look at that and thought, don't start trying to shortchange us in that regard. As much as we sold well, I get it, but we spent, starting down 125 million in the market. All those just they might make a price point too rich for the blood, do you reckon?
Could do. I mean, if you know you could potentially lose him in the summer for 65 or whatever it was, then you're probably going to want to try and get 80 or something around that, I'd imagine, as a premium. Plus the fact they've got to go and get a player, which is more expensive in January anyway. So it's a knock-on effect. At one point, the deal might be X, but the reason it's X is because in January, the next club down has got to go and get the same player, and then the club below that. It's not like the summer where you can kind of wait things out and be like, well, we're going to buy him, and you could either take it or not. January is really condensed. So, I think maybe. And equally, the other factors to take into account is I think they're going to have to get a centre-half in January. If that price gets moved beyond the amount they've already allocated for Gueye, then that eats into any other kitty you've got lying around that you could go and get a Semenyo, right? So this isn't the only moving part, and I know the club are used to working with multiple moving parts, but I think I would be surprised if we didn't have a restricted amount for January. And within that envelope is if they want two players, then the first one's got to get done, which is the centre half, and then that releases what you've got left. That's kind of how I would potentially think it would be going to go. Yeah,
that potential knock-on effect. I think everyone will see it that way in terms of priority and what we said. Everyone wants a defender. Everyone wants a progressive defender. More like to be a centre-back than a full-back. Obviously, people have their thoughts on the right-back scenario, which is it almost in terms of, because of what the price point would be and because of what the needs are right now, Semenyo wouldn't dismiss it in the summer at all, but just struggling to see it in January.
Probably, let's just say we're quoted 80 million, right? If you put that into context at the moment, we need a centre half in January, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We potentially might want a right back.
Yeah.
So that's best part of 60, 70 million. That's best part of that amount of money, right? And if we're serious about winning the league this year, which isn't out of the grasp, I know there's been a lot of negativity and I get that, but we're only a little bit off the top and you can make that back, right? You are going to need to stop leaking goals and you're going to need reinforcements in those areas. I'm not dismissing any players that are there, but, Frimpong's just got his second hamstring in the season after not being injured ever. So, there's things to consider, right? And we've already lost our fourth choice centre half. So I would say there were more priority areas than a left winger. But we've done some crazy things this summer. We really have. So it wouldn't surprise me. I just think I think you're right. It's lower down the priorities for me if it's centre half and a right back first. If we're going to do more than one signing, and then we'd look at maybe a forward line.
He's a good player. He's got a lot of physical attributes people we like. As Bart said, if you look at the actual output, although, as you also mentioned, Bart, there's always going to be question marks against the guy with a non-penalty goal below 0.3 as well, XG below 0.3. So, but January, there's a lot of other things to consider. We'll see if anything develops on that one. In terms of wingers or attackers, we kind of alluded to this one before, people, but doing a bit of digging as we do at Anfield Index around obviously Semenyo and other targets, there's another name that seems to be focused on Liverpool, and this could be even more difficult in this regard. But no player in the Premier League this season has made more sprints per 90, 33 per 90, than this player, Yankuba Minteh. That is a hell of a lot of sprints. Brighton, left-footed, plays on the right side, sounding a bit familiar. And please, this is not one eminent part of being derogatory about the Egyptian king, because he is a player that we both adore. But you do seem to be getting the feeling, even just as we sort of look at this name a little bit in comparison, wingers seem to be being talked about a lot. It does leave a few questions, doesn't it, around a number of players.
Yeah, 100%. I think this player is 21, is he? Yeah. 21. Ghana, Gambia. As you say, plays on the. If you watch him on the footage, he's incredibly left-footed, but plays on the right. He's very quick. Holds his line quite well, so can make a run in behind really effectively. Happy to carry, as you can see here. Some of his carries are in the 84th percentile. Take-ons at 91st. He carries into the penalty box, as you can see, with 94th. Touches in the penalty box, which come from carries from pass. The other thing that is people will, people like some familiarity, right? He does the whole cut back onto his left and cross it in with his left from the right wing, which, as we know, has become a fulcrum of our attacking output over the years. When I say left-footed, he is incredibly left-footed. I think I watched 2-3 reels of footage of him, including a game, and I don't think I saw him use his right for anything other than standing on, to be honest with you. And that's not criticism. Some of the best players are, but he shoots with power on target. Doesn't seem to have a lot of curler in his locker, but these are all things that we did at 21. Defensively, this is what actually impressed me. But again, context is key here. As with Semenyo, Brighton are also a very heavy off-ball team. So if you play for Brighton, you've got to work. That's not saying that players don't work at other teams, but I'm just saying this is one of the principles of their play, is that they have tasks to do, and that comes through. So he tackles, he does the whole lot, all in. His clearances are at 93rd, his tackles are at 97, and the rest of it are all in nearly the 80s. So that's a really good defensive profile for for a winger. As we've already said, he carries it a lot and he receives progressive passes. So passing isn't really his thing in terms of his completion rate isn't good, which means he's on the end of things. He's not the guy to instigate. Which, if you think about our play this season, there has been some analysis that we've missed a rapid out ball. If you get what I mean, someone who can just release from a set play. We're defending a set play, and then he just carries it the whole length of the pitch and finishes it, right? So that could be a reason why we're looking at it. In the box, though, 0.26 non-penalty goals. He's not going to give you a massive highlight reel. Shot creating actions, again, 30th percentile. But in terms of the assists, he's more in the 71st percentile. So that gives you a little bit of a notion that he might want to progress that ball or be on the end of a move, but he is then looking to maybe assist it more. It's just the accuracy of that assist needs to be better. Comparing him to the Egyptian King, I think it's fair to say they're different players. Defensively, they're different. Even if another guy we've looked at is Elise. That's unfair comparison because the guy is lighting up the league at the moment. I'm just trying to find Cody for you. So Cody is similar-esque there. So you could say that the two are quite similar in terms of their build-up. Again, looking, what does his threat look like for Brighton? More than Semenyo in terms of pass and cross, about the same for a pass. Interestingly, this backs up what his ability is, which is progressive carries into the penalty box. So he makes nearly 3 a game.
Wow.
So he carries the ball progressively into the box nearly 3 times a game. And that's actually quite something when you think about it. Right? And he still receives nearly 5 of those, nearly 5 progressive passes as well. So, I think there's a lot to like about this kid. Really, really interesting. Like young as well, like a young, real young. Could be probably further down the rankings in terms of Semenyo, obviously, but might be something to consider in terms of, do you buy now from Brighton or buy in a year when he's Mintoma kind of level, So, an interesting guy. I can't imagine it'd be cheaper or what, Brighton or not.
This is a tough one because you're dealing with Barber and Bloom and Brighton straight away. So you're dealing with masters in the business. So negotiation is going to be hard to meet their price to even start with. Contract till 2029. Quite in a weird way, when we did some digging on this, without being rude, quite a sort of small time agency. Is definitely not with one of the elite ones, if you know what I mean, in that regard as well. Which sometimes makes it easier for relations. In terms of relations as well, the other thing to note was at Feyenoord, wasn't he, with Arne Slot? So has played that year on loan there. So Arne Slot will be well versed, and not suggesting things, but I think we full well know that if Arne Slot did want Yankuba Minteh a quick FaceTime or anything, could be easily sorted, or they'd be speaking that way, in that regard. But Rapid, like Semenyo, I suppose it'd be interesting when you talk about it this way. Semenyo or Minteh, if we were talking in the summer, because it just feels unlikely for Semenyo in January. How would you contrast them in that regard? Because they're both quick, they're both wingers, but they are different profiles at the same time.
Yeah, I think I could see one coming with the current stock. So Minteh, I could see coming in easily and fitting into the current stock, should we say? But if that current stock is changed, then I could see Semenyo being more important to bring in, if that makes sense. If we lose one of the starting 1 or 2, then I don't think Minteh's your man to bring in to replace that starting player, if that makes sense. Like, I think, let's say Cody goes to Bayern. Let's just say that maybe something like that happens, then you could see a Semenyo coming in. That seems like a sensible way forward. Whereas if Cody or Mo leave, I'm not sure Minteh's your man you bring in to replace one of those two. That's probably where I'm at.
Yeah. Is it almost a bit like we talked about the summer? Because I think people always think of like the names and who they want. we looked at profiles within the summer, and Malik Fofana, for instance, was one that we looked at, didn't we? Pace, someone like a Carrier.
Yeah.
And he might well still be on the radar, not that we've got anything new on that at all. It's just important to say. But that was a different profile from some of the other wingers that we were, of course, linked to and looked at that way. So if it was, you say, the age comes into it, doesn't it? Semenyo's 27 or about to be 27. PK, you're buying him for the now. If you were to buy Minteh, it would probably be as a project forward, like we've bought Leone as a project defender. That's probably how the club will be looking at it, fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, arguably, to Ekitike, right, is a younger forward. He's not backup because he's rotation, but you have bought him with a bit more of the future looking than you have Isak, right? So I could see how this kind of 21 could fit in as a project. He could. That's why I said if you come into the current stock for a season or so, learn a bit about our system so that the integration is easy for him, and then become a first-team player in a year's time, potentially for us.
So both could be in the mix, but I have to be honest, people. Everything for January, it just doesn't feel likely at all. It just feels a summer move for both. But those are the headlines. A lot of this summer surprised us anyway. Nothing's really surprising you too much with Liverpool, so you just never know. And the final thing, Bart, did want to ask you about why I've got you. I mean, it's a massive game at the weekend, Brentford. And we'll go into stats with this very, very shortly. But just in terms of, we had a great victory on Wednesday night against Frankfurt away. Brilliant. I'm sure a disgracefully organised team, especially at set pieces, maybe ones we wanted to pick. When you think of Brentford on the surface, the two things I think it's fair to say that jump to your screen are well organised, set pieces. That's probably fair to say with Brentford, isn't it?
100%. It's whereas I think Frankfurt, if you were looking for a team to go away and try and get a bit of confidence, get yourself back on track, right? Without being too disrespectful, a team that shipped that amount of goals as Frankfurt had, dropped their keeper because he conceded some about 11 goals in the last 3 games, whatever it was, and have a midfield that, a colleague of mine said is an extremely soft centre, a bit like an armadillo, hard on the outside, soft on the inside, right? It's not a bad opposition to go and play, right? And we did the job that we do. Liverpool is still a very, very good side. If you let them do the things that Liverpool want to do, they will kill you. That's fundamentally how they're set up. The problem with this season is the teams are not letting us do that, and we're still working a few things out. Conversely, Brentford could, and history tells us that, make the game very difficult, make it into a set-piece scenario, low event, right? Yeah. Try and physically dominate you in terms of duels, which is the method that Everton have used quite successfully against us. Newcastle have done that against us.
Yeah.
The positives for us is that I think Brentford are not as good as they were. This is famous last words, isn't it? You're going to clip me for this later on. But they're not as good as they were last season, I think. I think they're going through a bit of a change. But fundamentally, their principles are still there. They'll still try and do low event games, set plays, maximise, and then make it about duels.
Does feel that way. And there's so many former Liverpool connections with obviously Jordan Henderson's there. Kelleher will be between the sticks. Probably feel Fabio Carvalho will be on the bench. But if you just look at them in terms of the raw stats, it's interesting because 8 games, lost half of them, won 3, draw 1. So they are a real mix across the board. And if you look at their last 5, I mean, 1, 2, lost 2, draw, everything, anything these boys could serve up. But it's almost impressive they've scored 11 goals and they have got threats like Utara and players like that. Igor seems to be knocking in a few as well, although I think I could score a few against West Ham at the moment. But it's that one, as you say, in terms of things just to point to. 12 goals conceded. That's quite interesting for me. But I'm kind of intrigued to see what are the underlying stats and what have we got for Brentford.
I mean, we won't go massively into depth because it's not, whatever it is. But so Brentford on the whole, what did you say? They scored 11 goals, haven't they?
Yeah.
Right? Is that right? Yeah. And they've created 10.7 XG. So they're bang on.
Yeah.
In terms of creation. Okay. We can look at another site and I will look at where they come from in a minute. But against, which is the key thing, I think they conceded 12, right? So they've actually should have conceded 10. So they're running cold at the defensive end. So they conceded more than they should do. Recently, they have started to tighten up, which is probably something you don't want to be seeing. They've gone from having over 1 XG conceded to now 0.8, 0.4. So one of those was against City. So that's something you don't want to be seeing. I think if we look at where they create from, which is probably something. So on the stat, I'll obviously tell you the situation. To open play, they've only created 8.7 XG, which is funnily enough where they've scored 10 of their goals, which is again a difference from last season. They scored a lot of goals from set plays last season. They got one penalty, which was against United, I think it was.
Yeah.
So from set plays, and this is where I said they're changing. They should have scored. What's that? From corners and other set pieces, you're looking at just short of 3 goals, right? And they've scored none. Right? Goals against from set plays. They're still very tight though. This is 0.9, so that's less than a goal from set plays, and they've conceded 1. So they're pretty much bang on where they should be. So that's not a huge weakness they're giving up at. They're not Frankfurt, for example, at giving away XG at set plays, but they're certainly not scoring at the rate they should be from set plays, which could be a bit of a warning, considering we are. Susceptible is not the right word. So we deal with the first ball really well at the moment, but over, I think 4 out of the 5 goals we conceded from set plays in the league this year have come from second phase, i.e. BVD wins the first one, but the opposition know that, and then they pick up the recycled ball and get it. Palace scored twice. Newcastle. Yeah, there's various opportunities you look at, and it's because of that second ball thing. So if we don't solve that, then Brentford are creating enough XG that if there's a weakness in your ability to defend them, that might fall their way. Otherwise, in terms of game state, what happens? They generally, from a goal difference down below, so when they're behind, they can start conceding a lot of XG. Okay, which happens with a lot of teams. It does. True. We sometimes take advantage. We take our ability to come back from goals behind. We talk about as being it is actually quite a big superpower. Not a lot of teams can do that. All right. So that's something to be considering. Brentford as a whole, just looking at where we are. So that's 1.8, 1.25 a game against just below 1 XG. So an XG difference of 0.31, which is not great. If you're going to win the league, which Brentford
aren't you looking at Bournemouth there?
Oh, sorry, yeah, Bournemouth. My bad, yeah. Sorry. 1.37, 1.0, about level even of XG. Got my B's mixed up there, man. Just been ill. So they've got an XG difference of pretty much 0, right? Which explains where they are in their intermittent form. If you're going to be a good side, you need to be 0.8 or above, all right? So, so their threat is about just over 1, so they're not converting at any rate at all. And they're conceding 0.33 threat. Generally, we do about 2 and a bit we create. So it'd be interesting to see how much of our game we can impose on Brentford, or will it end up being a series of low events, low XG events, and you hope you come the right side of it with a bit of magic, with maybe a Nunes chip one year, I think you did, wasn't it, from a Jota header, or some near post little flicks and the rest of it. So yeah, it could be a really tight game, and I hope we come out on the right side. They've gone away from the beginning of the season when they were giving away a lot of XG to now getting a bit tighter. So I think it might be a game of patience. We're probably going to have a lot of possession, as we normally do, and it's about how we that block that we sometimes have when we get into the final third of creating that moment. Yeah, this will really test our ability to deal with deep blocks, definitely, and our ability to defend set plays.
It's interesting because I mean, considering they've lost half their games, that sounds positive. I think you used the right phrase. They've tightened up. They played both Manchester clubs in the last 3. So they played United in game week 6 and won 3-1. So they only shipped 1 there. Game week 7, they lost to City, but it was only 1-0 at home, and they were in that right till the end. And, in the nicest way, Haaland scores against everyone at the moment, doesn't he? So, but only shipping 1 to City and clean sheet. So they've actually only conceded 2 goals in their last 3. So you can see them under Keith Andrews clearly tightening up. So it's unfortunately it's going the wrong way, because 2 games before they had 2 at home against Chelsea conceded and then lost at Fulham by 3. But it is tightening up. We've really got to stress that, unfortunately, going the wrong way. The other thing I wanted to say is some clubs have tried to use this against us. And you mentioned Van Dijk getting the first header, or sometimes it's Canate on occasions, it's that second ball. Brentford, long throws. Michael Coyote especially, they do load people into the box, and they bring up a Pinnock, they bring up a Nathan Collins. They have aerial threats there as well, don't they? This could be even Stef van der Berg. There's another
Liverpool.
When they equalised against Chelsea for 2-2, it's Van der Berg with a flick on, wasn't it? And Carvalho at the far post. So even those long throws and the tightening up, they're 2 traits we're not really too excited about for this one, are we?
No, I mean, anyone lines up with, their back 4, their forwards. Their fullbacks used to be their attacking output. They've trimmed that a little bit now. And then you've got a double pivot in front of Yamovich and Henderson, right?
Yeah.
Henderson is definitely past peak. I'm not going to dig on an ex-Liverpool captain, but he's not prime Henderson, right? Indeed. So he's not going to do a lot of running around, for example. He's going to work hard and do the rest of it. But so that's going to be a very strong box in front of their goal. We've already seen United played a back 3 with almost 2 in front, right? And that meant that we had very low amount of shots in the width of the goal. A lot of our shots were from angles until we started getting the set plays right in the second half and creating pressure. So you could get a similar, if the 2 fullbacks tuck in potentially, and you get a really tight 4 with 2 in front. Yeah, that's going to be difficult to break down. But the selection that Slot comes up with will be really interesting. He's got to match them for height, because that's what Brentford are about fundamentally. Yeah. And you've got to find ways of creating gaps in between their defence. So it's about stretch, it's about pace. So Cody's probably nearly always start anyway, but he holds the width on the left. You then need to think about your right, what you do that, and how you occupy in the middle as well. So, that selection will be really interesting. I can imagine he'll probably go for the midfield 3 that he did last season. Maybe, Grab's injured, isn't he? So, but a CJ Grab, CJ Mack, Dom might be. I don't know. Might go with that in the middle.
It's hard to say, because you mentioned height there, so you're probably thinking, well, we think Gravenberch's going to be fit. Obviously, we'll have to see him at the press conference, which is 10:30 in the morning for that one. So Gravenberch brings height. Obviously, we talk about how good he is in the air, but that's a different discussion. I think Dominic Szoboszlai was great against Frankfurt. Curtis Jones and Alexis McAllister are so out of form at the moment. It's hard to see that. Robbo and Kirkes, neither are brilliant in the air particularly, but maybe Robbo just shades it with his foot. I don't know. It's so hard to call with some of these. I think Conor Bradley, obviously Frimpong's now injured, but his height would have got him the nod over Frimpong for this, I think, as well. Which then brings into the forward line, because you're thinking with Isak out, of course, Ekitike is going to start, has some height at the same time. The Florian Wirtz question, because a lot of people are thinking, I kind of get this, he's got to get a run in the team. But if Salah's going to come in on the right, that only leaves the left-hand side. And Cody Gakpo is his boy. And whatever you think of Cody Gakpo, height, the experience, are you seeing Wirtz maybe dropping out for this one?
This is where at the moment it's really hard to predict what he would do. Like, who thought he'd go away to Frankfurt and play effectively a box, and out of position 4-4-2, and in possession of a box, right, with two forwards. I struggled to see him playing Wirtz in an area, like position him in between Henderson and that. I don't think he would do that, but I did think Wirtz was good last night. The other night, I did think he played well, but Mo didn't play, and Wirtz was flowing into those areas. And a couple of the really good moments where Flo was into the right half space channel, into the hot zone, and playing it across. So, but he's not going to not play Mo for 2 games in a row. So, yeah, I think that. I haven't got, and that's not helpful. I don't have I'm not sure what he's going to do with either of those two. I don't think he's going to play both Mo and Wirtz. That's probably where I'm at with that. I don't think he'll play both, because he's going to need it to Ekitike, and he's going to need Cody's height, and I think he'll need power in midfield. So if Grab's fit, then it grabs CJ Dom, makes sense. But yeah, then that doesn't leave anywhere for Wirtz.
Could we? It's so hard to predict. I don't think anyone's got any certainty on the lineup. And I suppose the final thing for this one, everything we're watching and seeing, everything we've just analysed, stats one, this doesn't scream. I mean, you never know because things surprise you, but this does not scream 3-3 like it was when Brentford first came up into the league. This feels like a very tight game that could be, again, Liverpool conceding or not conceding set pieces. Very marginal, it feels, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as you quite rightly said, I mean, City are not a bad side, by the way. We talk about City as being like, oh yeah, whatever, but they're still a very good team. They have a cheat code, and they needed that cheat code to win this game.
Yeah.
Right? So it's only 1-0. So that shows you how strong they are. They beat United. Yes, United at that time, I think, weren't as good as they are now. I'm trying to
we couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, but United have improved over the weeks, whether people like to say that or not. But yeah, so I think a tight game is on the cards. And I'm hoping we're on the right side of that tightness. I really am. I think personally, he needs a win. He needs a win in the Premier League to get back on track. Yeah.
And at least stay in the top 4, or because Arsenal play Sunday, if the real aspirations are, push it right up there. So we will have to see. Bit early in the day, I know, but what are you predicting? What's your gut telling you for Saturday evening?
I mean, I've got to go. I'm probably going to go with a 1-0 Liverpool win. And
wow.
I don't know if there's any. I'm trying to take positives from midweek and say that the boys have had a chat. They've got some stuff going. There seems to be maybe these are all superlatives and not actually tangibles, if you like. But no, I hope we go there, do a professional job, defend well from set plays and nick it, and then go home and take the 3 points.
Fingers crossed with that. And I don't know, maybe it is heart over head with Wednesday night, but I get 2-1 in my head. I get sloppy set piece conceded, but Ekitike on the score sheet. But you're right. Any type of win, we have just got to get it done. We would take it all day long. So there we go, people. There's a lot to like for Semenyo. January, I'm not so sure, especially if this apparent clause is in the summer. The premium's there. It's hard to say. In terms of other moves for wingers, again, we've got to be honest, as we're hearing it, Anfield Index, Yankuba Minteh is the one that is also being called out. I know you want Elise, and obviously there's talk around a release clause, but that is the one we're hearing at the moment. And in terms of Brentford at the weekend, they score, they concede, they get set pieces, although they're not as hot as many would think. So maybe that could just work in our favour. But this coming weekend, Liverpool, if we've got any serious aspirations, have got to win. Simple as that. All it leaves me to say as ever is, for the time, the insight, for players, for form, for understat, for markstat, for everything that exists, Bart, as ever, is massively appreciated.
No worries, anytime.
And ladies and gents, that was a Stat Me Up special for Anfield Index.